Welcome to the Maui Nui Marine Resource Council monthly meeting. What a wonderful crowd we have tonight. I want to remind you that what we do, we're all about clean water, healthy reefs, and an abundance of Hawaiian fish. This is the big news tonight. Dr. Christina Lizzi has agreed to become our new executive director, and we are so excited to have her. We've had a very, thank you, Christina. We've had a very, long, extensive search to find the right person for this wonderful organization and for Maui, and we have so much work to do, and I think we found the perfect match, so we are thrilled. I'll give you a little introduction, and then Christina's going to speak for us. Christina first moved to Maui in 2012 after 5 years of living on Oahu, and she's very happy to be home again. This is your home forever now. In 2017, she graduated summa cum laude from William S. Richardson School of Law with certificates in environmental law and Native Hawaiian rights. She's a member of the Hawaii State Bar Association as well as the IUCN World Commission on Environmental Law. She recently clerked for 2 Hawaiian Supreme Court justices. Prior to law school, Christina worked as a policy analyst and national community organizer for an environmental nonprofit in Washington, D.C. with a focus on fisheries and aquaculture. Does this sound like the perfect person for us? So, with that, thank you, Christina. Welcome.
Mahalo. Mahalo, thank you. It is with great honor that I get to step into this role with Maui Nui Marine Resource Council. It's uncanny, but about a decade ago when I first came to Hawaii, I was coming with the organization I was working with to attend an event that was honoring the founder of this organization, Uncle Ed Lindsay. And so, you know, it's wonderful how life works in strange ways, and I'm so happy and so grateful to be here. Unfortunately, I'm not a doctor. I wish I were, but I will correct that little part. just an attorney. But I will usher us through to the next few slides, and thank you all so much for being here tonight to join in this discussion. So as many of you are probably aware, we love to hold these events in order to foster discussion in the community and to provide various viewpoints for us all to really have a healthy dialogue. And so we're really grateful that Paul is here tonight to bring some information to us about overtourism and to have a good discussion about what that means for Maui. We also want to highlight a few events first. We have the Trilogy Blue Aina Cruise, which is on September 14th. I'm going to stand back here. It's in the Lahaina Harbor. Starts at 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. We are honored to accept a donation from this group this year, and we'll be on board helping out with the cruise. We also will be hosting Nainoa Thompson in October, and we hope you will join us at that. That'll be at the EAL Theater. Very honored that he's coming to speak for all of us. Tickets are just between $10 and $20, so we hope to keep it affordable and hope that you all can join us. And tickets are available through that link, and then we've also sent that out in the Reef and Brief newsletter. And your support makes a difference. We are a 501c3, so we really appreciate any donations in order to keep our operations going and to help us realize that vision of clean ocean waters, healthy coral reefs, and abundant native fish here in Hawaii's waters. And with that, Paul tells me that he needs no introduction, but I do believe he needs at least a short introduction because he is a fantastic person and a very kind-hearted person. We saw a family along the road today on our way over here, and he didn't hesitate for a moment when we stopped to pull over and help him out. So it's like, he's a great person.
They didn't have anything worth stealing, so we dropped him off.
But Paul is going to talk tonight. He has a background, he's an economist. He studied at Stanford, taught at University of Wisconsin, and got his Ph.D. from the University of Hawaiʻi. He tells me this is ancient history, but he used to work for the Bank of Hawaiʻi and was their chief economist for some years. For the past decade, he's been running his own company, Chief Economist, where he's a consultant for some major projects. So we look forward to hearing Paul's discussion tonight and thank him for his time and look forward to your questions and answers.
Thanks, Christina. And I forgot, I brought props tonight. So, thank you, Amy, who's been in contact with me and helping organize this since, I guess Christina hadn't actually been hired yet. So welcome aboard. I was instructed by several people, so doesn't happen to me all the time, where people, before the presentation even happens, are telling me what I should do. And wow, okay. So Amy has an excuse. She was organizing it, and she said, basically, don't make people's brains explode. And if you've ever seen my presentations, you know what she's talking about. So I will have to ignore that advice. And then, I'm just telling you, sorry. I really did try to conform, and I realized, no, I got to do my thing. It will make your heads explode, and then we'll have a Q&A. And then I got an inquiry out of the blue from a colleague here on where are you, Maui, and he was like, dude, don't even show your slides. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out. This looks like a likely one, yeah. And I said, okay, like me without PowerPoint, that's, okay, I can't do that either. And then my Ph.D. thesis advisor, with whom I'm collaborating on yet another over-tourism paper, emailed me, and he said, don't use the word externality. Okay, I just used it once. I will try not to use it more than 2 other times, but I'm here to tell you that my whole thing tonight is about bananas. I'm going to call them bananas. You may recall Fred Kahn, when confronted with the question, many of you in the room aren't old enough to remember this, but back in the day, President Jimmy Carter, in a period of heightened inflation, had appointed Fred Kahn to run the Civil Aeronautics Board because he was a believer that commercial passenger aviation in the United States should be deregulated. And in fact, he believed in the research of a fellow colleague, William Baumol, who I think won the Nobel Prize. This may come up again, who is also the author of this classic theory of environmental policy, Baumol and Oates. And so Fred Kahn took over the CAB and promptly dismantled it. And he's 1978, he's the reason why we have passenger aviation deregulation in the United States, why Southwest can just decide to fly here once they figure out how to actually get a plane here. It takes you 30 days. Okay, how long does this take you to get entitlement to build a workforce housing project? These guys called me up the other day. Hey, buddy, you can testify in our workforce housing project. Yeah, shoots, bro. Where is it? West Side, shoots. Dude, I don't even know these guys' names, right? So they're like, just help us out. Yeah, shoots, no worries. So I go look up the thing, look up the Maui general plan. I look, hey, look, right there, workforce housing. It's in the plan. So I write my testimony. I go, send it over. Then I call them up a couple of days later. I say, so what happened? Oh, they turned us down. They're like, they turned you down for a workforce housing project in a spot where it says workforce housing in the plan. So I ask you, how long will it take you to get the right to build workforce housing on Maui? Waiting for Godot, right? How long does it take an FAA-certified commercial passenger air carrier, a domestic carrier, to get a gate at Honolulu International Airport? 30 days. That's airline deregulation. So Fred Kahn, after he did that, after he dismantled the Civil Aeronautics Board, right, we regulate safety, maybe. I don't know, have you flown the MAX yet? But we don't regulate fares. We don't regulate who gets to fly where. So if you're FAA certified, knock yourself out. So Fred Kahn goes over to be the inflation czar for Jimmy Carter, who's, the last one-term president. And, ooh, did I say that? No, that's not true, because George H.W. was too. And Fred is confronted with this incipient recession, which at the time was the worst since the Great Depression. Because the way you cure inflation is you have a big-ass recession, right? I mean, that's how that works. And people were all upset that he kept talking about recession, because he's an economist, and that's, I'm going to talk about externalities. Ding, number 2. I'm running through my quota. So he said, henceforth, I will no longer call it a recession. I'm going to call it a banana. So we are headed into a deep, deep banana. So I'm going to do the same today and talk about this very narrow subject in the context of overtourism. I do have some other ocean-worthy material that I may not get to. I got it in here, so if I go really fast, maybe we'll get there. So what time is it? And what time are we done? 5:30? I'm done at 5:15. Right? You told me 45 minutes. 6:30. Oh, brother. No, life is too short. You guys seriously don't want that much from me. Yeah. Is there like food or something? Or the drinks coming out in an hour? Happy hour? Okay, here we go. So first of all, I need to get you all aligned with me about tourism. What do I mean by that? Okay, forget everything you've ever read in the newspaper. I even had a couple conversations here tonight where I was like, wait, what? So I'm going to get you on my page. Okay? All right, ready? This is the newspaper version. This is from a year and a half ago. They keep coming, they keep coming. Why would they not? It's freaking Maui. We have this thing called, you know how the Brits, like half of them, want to get out of the EU? Why is the EU doing what it's trying to do? Because when our founding fathers, or whatever, I don't know where the mothers were, but when our founding fathers would go back home at night and ask their wives what should be in the Constitution, they said, right? Hey, brother, you got to be able to, they said, hey, brother, you got to be able to move around the cabin, right? You are free to move around the cabin. I don't know if you are nowadays, but now they tell you, but keep your seatbelt buckled and don't congregate around the galleys and bathrooms. But I'm just saying, in this country, you are free to move around the country without a passport, right? That's not true. It's been true in Europe for about 5 minutes, and they're still trying to figure it out. The Franks haven't figured out, the French haven't figured out that if they're descendants of the Franks, they're actually German, right? The Spanish haven't figured out that they're somewhere between Arab and Attila the Hun's descendants and I don't know what. Last time I was in Salzburg, I took my kids there. I will come back to this point. When they were in high school, I took them on their Asian trip and I took them on their European trip, and then I said, that's fine. After I pay for college, we're done. And we went to the town of Hallstatt, which is the name of a Celtic culture in the Alps above. So Sound of Music, the hills are alive with the Hallstatt culture. 2500 BC? Can that be right? Or maybe it's just 2,500 years ago, right? These guys were living up. It's Salzburg, right? Salts. Burg is the city, Burg, the city or castle or whatever, on the Salzach River. And so salt, why? Because in the late Bronze Age, if you had salt, if you had a salt mine, you were rich. Like all of Europe was trying to get your salt. And so why are we talking about this? Now I can't remember. Oh, and I'm like, what do you mean Celts? You mean like, ring, ring, the Scottish are coming over the hill? Like those Celts? Like the Welsh Celts, the Irish Celts? The Celts, there were Celts in Austria 2,500 years ago? Or maybe it was 2,500 BC, I don't know, whenever the late Bronze era was. And yeah, that's what the Europeans are trying to do. They're trying to make it so you can drive around at will. We started out that way in this country. We have an interstate commerce clause in the Constitution, and the only reason it doesn't include intellectual property is because the Founding Fathers' wives hadn't thought up intellectual property yet. Right? You know what I'm talking about, right? The interstate commerce clause says if you make vodka from taro corms on Maui, you can probably distribute it anywhere else in the country if you pay enough bribes. I don't know how alcohol works. I should have used another example. If you grow coffee, let's just forget agriculture. If you make if you design, now I'm talking intellectual property. If you design Maui Jim, Jim is from Maui, right? Somebody told me this. Kevin Baptist told me that Jim is from Maui, and someday he's going to introduce me, right? So if you make sunglasses in Maui, you can sell them anywhere in the United States, and nobody tell you you can't. You can put them on a truck, put the truck on the Matson container ship or Pasha, drive it to the mainland, drive it across the country. Nobody can stop you. Then when you drive from California to Arizona, they can't say, can we see what's in the back of your truck? Can we see if there's Mexicans in the back of your truck, right? No way. You just drive across the country. So that's why we have this arrangement in this country where you're free to move around, and of course people want to come to Maui because they're free to do so, and the airlines are free. Southwest is free to fly an airplane to Kahului, Maui, and it takes 30 days to get a gate. See, my story actually had a point, from the Celts to flying to Maui. So I'm sorry if this is what sells papers, right? Conflict. They're coming. Aren't you pissed? Right? That's what this newspaper article says. Right? That's what that says. I'm sorry. They're not. The headline does not say, "E como mai." We get choke tourists, but we can use the money. So keep it coming, brother. That's not what that says. That said, GTFOOH. Leave your money, and then GTFOOH. That's what that headline says. And that's what we're talking about. Okay? So here's the Maui data. Right? First there was the roller coaster. That's the cycle. That's the business cycle. The boom of the 2000s when you thought you were a genius. Turns out you were just lucky. And then the value of your house went down. And then the escalator of the 20 teens. And the 20 teens, in addition to being the longest economic expansion in history, in addition to being the longest economic expansion in history, and by the way, I realize there's at least 3 people filming me right now, so I'm going to do some weird terms of service agreement right now and say, if you took my picture, I own it, number one, and number two, when somebody does that Chinese software and turns it into some anti-Brewbaker video on the Maui Yesterday website, I'm going to hire Christina, and we're going to sue your ass. What do they call this software now? What's it called? Deep fakes. Deep fakes. When the deep fakes comes out, we're going to be rich, sister. Okay? Okay, I'm just saying, hey, you're welcome to film, and I know it's being recorded, which is why I haven't said a swear word yet. So, cycle, the worst recession since the Great Depression, and then the escalator of life. Constant dollar tourism receipts, visitor expenditure, monthly visitor arrivals. I've seasonally adjusted everything. It's a little speed bump at the end, because as you all know, if there's a volcano in Puna, better not go to Maui. What? Oh, here's another one. If there's a war in Kuwait, better not go to Maui. Remember that one? Remember that one? Were you guys not here for that one? The Persian Gulf War, you're not here for that one? How about if Governor Cayetano is actually incorrect and 9/11 is not the worst thing that ever happened to Hawaii, because A, it didn't actually happen to Hawaii, and B, I'm pretty sure Pearl Harbor was worse. I'm just saying, if something happens to the World Trade Center in New York City, what happens to Maui? People stop coming here till they get over it. That's okay. Volcano on the Big Island, I'm shocked to hear that a live volcano on the Big Island actually erupted. I mean, who knew? Right? In the kind, what you call, I want to say Pomoho, that's not right. That's not, anyway, you know, down Kapoho, brother, Kapoho. I remember first grade, Wailupi Valley Elementary. I remember sitting in 1961, sitting in my class, watching the 16mm films of the Kapoho eruption, right? Kilauea Iki. I mean, half the room's not even born. I'm just saying, who knew that a live volcano would have another eruption in the same place? This is also relevant to something we're going to talk about later. So there we are. It happened. People are getting over it. They're coming back to Maui. This is in standard deviations, just to prove that the things move the same kind of general range of, but here are the actual data as published by the state of Hawaii, Hawaii Tourism Authority, DBED republishes them. And by the way, when you get a copy of the PDF, the cut down one that won't have some of the good stuff, all of the links to the data are in here so that once you're on the same page as me, you can always be on the same page by just downloading that same data and doing your own seasonal adjustment and deflation. Okay, so you get the picture. Roller coaster, expansion of the 2010s, the 20-teens, approaching the end maybe of the expansion. We're not quite sure. The president's trying to, bring on the next recession with his anti-trade policy. And then, of course, the speed bump at the end. Okay? Roller coaster, escalator, speed bump, and you're all here wondering, where do we go in the 2020s? Right? Where does tourism go in the 2020s? Same picture for the neighbor islands in general, different picture for Oahu. Screw those guys, we don't care about Oahu. So, roller coaster, escalator, speed bump, because the big island is in the neighbor island data, the spending has not come back yet. Okay? It has on Maui, but when you smush all together, big island with Maui and Kauai, both the tourists on Kauai, that's what's going on. Here's another reference point. How many tourists come to Maui right now? I don't even know. What is it, like? Maui, is it like 5 million, yeah? 5 million. Okay, that's the daily census. So how many people get off the plane? I'm pretty sure. Anyway, whatever this is, here, let's just do the math. 250 times 12. You got a phone, you can put it on your calculator. Calculate it. Come on, I know half of you have a phone in your hand. 250,000 a month times 12 months. Okay, 3 million, thank you. Notice that for 25 years, from 1990 to 2015, the numbers didn't really change that much. They followed kind of the same path, plus or minus whatever bad hair year was happening or whatever, right? Here's the subprime bubble right above me here. There's 9/11. There's Y2K, which didn't even happen, and it happened. I'm telling you, what goes on in people's heads, right? I better go to Maui after, either go way before and then leave by New Year's, or I'll wait till January 1st and then I'll go to Maui. Unreal, yeah? And then there's the Gulf War, Desert Storm. Okay? So these things happen, but what's remarkable to me is that for 25 years, the numbers were kind of in the same range, about, I'm going to call it 190,000 a month times 12 months, so let's say not quite 2.5 million. And then all of a sudden, in the last 5 years, boom, it goes to 3 million, and everybody's having a cow on Maui. Because every single one of the guys, so here's what the founding forefathers came up with for Maui tourism in 1967, when the first Boeing 707, right, jets, that's a game changer, jets, passenger jets. And what did the founding forefathers of Hawaii tourism say in 1967? Well, see, they should have talked to their wives because they didn't, and so they came up with this plan. Dude, let's put the airport over by Kahului, and then we'll make the resort as far away from Kahului. And A and B was like, oh, hell yeah, Wailea, bro. right? And what's the first destination resort ever in Hawaii? AmFac, bruh. Nobody even knows what AmFac is anymore, right? Used to be H.H. Hackfeld. Do you even know that story? Okay, forget about it. AmFac made the first resort Ka'anapali, right? Because they were sitting in the room with everybody else and they're like, oh, brah, Wailea, that's not even far. But you got to go west side. Past Lahaina, brah. And then Maui Land and Pine is all, oh, no, brother, wait. Kapalua, brother, hey. And then all the buggers inside the room, right? The one Portuguese guy in there going, hey, brother, how they going to get there? Car rental. And you know, well, it's 1960s, right? So here's the conversation over on Oahu where I live. You know what I mean? 1950s. You could still do this in those days. Hey, brother, how about if you punch 6 tunnels through the Ko'olau Mountains? We'll make 12 lanes of multi-lane divided highway to Kailua Kaneohe. There's like 5 guys that live there, but we make freeway. Oh, brah, I can get to work in 20 minutes. Brah, I made it from my house today to the HCDA hearing. 10 minutes, brah. 10 minutes. You know, no more cops right now. Okay, turn off the camera. Brah, they're fixing the Pali Highway, right? No cops nowhere. Everybody driving 65. But you're not driving 65. You're not keeping up. I timed it on my little timer thing. Unreal. Okay, so that didn't happen over here. Nobody punched a tunnel through Iao Valley and came out on the other side, and that's never going to happen. You will never be allowed to punch a tunnel in Hawaii, and you will never be allowed to, and you know what? I'm still living in Kailua, and I got to work in 10 minutes, so hell yeah. Which is why you're on Maui, and I'm on Oahu. So that decision was made, wasn't my idea. I woke up one day after my 16-millimeter film in Wailupi Valley Elementary, and the decision had been made. We're going to make people drive everywhere on Maui. So we'll come back to that in a second. So that brings me to the, putative, right? That's a lawyer word, putative. Asked and answered, right? That's another good one. Asked and answered. The putative topic tonight, I'm just going to talk on a real narrow part of over-tourism, but I'm going to dismiss a couple things along the way that will upset you, so save it for the Q&A. I'm not going to talk about black swans. Okay, to me, one of the, risks, okay, we're not going to talk about it. Second, okay, I'm going to use up my third, okay, you said it, not me. So, affordability as a pecuniary banana, yeah, I'm not going to talk about that. Right, build more houses, that's, okay, done. Here's the semantic one. What you mean, that's, this is local pidgin, right? WHATCHUMEAN. You write this down, Christina, you can use it, okay? Whenever you say, like, if there's what do you call it when there's 2 consonants together? Diphthong, thank you. I knew it had a slipper in there somewhere. Like, you always got to put the H between the S and the T, right? So in Hawaii, it's not strong, brother. It's strong, right? Go listen to the TV news. Like, it has the strength of, okay. So the other one, what you mean? What you mean over-tourism? Isn't that a little like the okay, there's too many tourists, so now give me a problem that we can solve. Over-tourism, right? The solution is get rid of the tourists, and so the problem to be solved is backwards, right? The semantics. You know what I'm talking about? It's like nobody talks about abortion. We're either pro-life or we're pro-choice, but we're not talking about abortion. And that's, semantically, I have a big problem. Now, I can't do, here's another one, genetic modification. Bruh, your mom modified the human genome when she picked your dad. What? Okay, so I'm just saying, I accept that we're all going to call it over-tourism. But I could just as well call it under-capacity. And hey, you brought up the subject of carrying capacity. Okay, so I'm going to come back to this. There's a variation on this, so I don't know if you heard this, but the other day, McKenna Kaufman, who's the head of the Climate Change Commission on Oahu, was talking with me, and I kept talking about sustainability. And she said, hey, resilience is the new sustainability. Okay? So everything, right, you used to put sustainable in front of everything, because then it's like chill, like, so we're going to have our sustainable tourism plan. Oh, awesome, because that's better than a tourism plan, right? So now we're going to have a resilient tourism plan. So everywhere you used to have sustainable, we're going to put resilient inside. And then the question is, what you mean? Well, what's implicit in that? We used to talk about growth, and now we talk about, and then we were talking about like not having growth or not having as much growth, and now we're just talking about negative growth. Right? There's a lot of people who are just saying less is more. Right? Less tourism is more. Don't tell me you don't know those guys, brother. They're out there. So we're going to have to kind of navigate through all these semantic challenges. And what I want to focus on are what I think is really the core issue here, which are tourism's unintended, uncompensated costs, the bananas. And my triumvirate are congestion, natural resource depletion, degradation, environmental, it's all the same stuff, and cultural dilution. Those are the three things I want to think about. Congestion, natural resource depletion, and cultural dilution. And I will argue that we could have the same conversation, and probably should have been having it, without ever bringing up tourism. Okay? And then some technical stuff. So some of you in the room will remember Father Guido Sarducci. So when I was a freshman, I thought I was going to be a writer, and I worked for the Stanford Daily until they caught me plagiarizing. Who knew, right? So, I mean, I didn't think it was plagiarizing, but they did. So one of my first assignments, my favorite assignment was I was sent to the boarding house in San Francisco to review a performance by Weather Report. And I go up to the boarding house, and remember when the drinking age was 18? Because you could die in Vietnam, so they figured you should be able to drink beer. And I get to the boarding house, I'm sitting at the bar with these guys, and they're like, oh, dude, show canceled. I'm like, oh, sick. So I'm all chilling with these guys. Bro, that was the band. That was why I know all the bros from Weather Report. Nobody showed up to hear Weather Report in 1973. Can you believe it? So anyway, another one of my assignments at the Fillmore West was to interview in the dressing room of the Fillmore West Father Guido Sarducci. Right? But somewhere in my house, I got a tape. I got a cassette tape. And dude stayed in character the whole time. And you remember one of his routines was the 5-minute university. And so this is the 5-minute university, and you can get several degrees in the 5-minute university. And here's the economics degree: supply and a demand. That's the whole curriculum. So that's what we're going to do today. I'm not going to show you any pictures, so you got to imagine it. Supply and a demand. Okay, so that's just how to handle the rest of the presentation. So I'm going to start by going through some of these points and illustrating, and then I'm going to get to this key point that the problem is that we get more bodies, but we're not getting more money. And the bananas, okay, I'll say it just this once, the externalities, the unintended, uncompensated side effects, bad side effects of tourism, are associated with the body count, not the money they spend. And the problem with having the body count go up is that all the negative effects are going up, and we're not getting any more money. Now, I just showed you on Maui that's not true. The money is going up. But you will get to a point, as we have on Oahu, and screw those guys, right? Where Bombay, the body count's going up, and you're not getting money. The hotels are getting the money, but that's a subject for a whole other discussion. Although I did bring some of that data, it's just that we do it for the money. And if we could do it through virtual reality glasses, where they sat in their living room and experienced all that Maui has to offer in the comfort of their own home, we would take that money too. So there's a goal for you to work towards, because that world is coming. I'm just saying. All right, let me show you what I'm talking about, right? We talked about black swans, housing affordability, resilience is a new sustainable. Okay, here we go. Black swans. Not all black swans are 9/11s that come from the other side of the planet. Some of them come from... Now, in this sense, the volcanic eruption on the Big Island was exogenous to Maui. It does not matter, because information asymmetry means that you know where the volcano is, but people all over the planet think that this is Maui. And so they did not come. And after the volcano stopped erupting, they still didn't come. And after everybody told them, hey, brother, the air quality on the Big Island has been this good in 35 years, they still did not come. Okay, so so there's another Nobel Prize. George Akerlof and his colleagues won a Nobel Prize about 15 years ago on this idea of asymmetric information. You know more about Maui than other people do. And the problem is they get some wacky, it's, trending on Twitter, and now they're not coming. And that happens. Now, sometimes it's endogenous. Sometimes you do it to yourself, like dengue fever, right? Here's another one, rat lungworm, right? Did you vaccinate your kids? How many mumps cases did Oahu have? Those bastards. How many cases of mumps did Oahu have last year? About the national record, 1,000 cases. I'm not making that up. Okay, what about affordability? I got these data from AirDNA. I'm just going to, vacation rentals don't occur in affordable housing. This is Kailua, where I live. These are all the vacation rentals in Kailua on May 19th, 2019. And they're makai. Now, I don't know where you live, but I'm a peasant. I live Mauka because it's cheaper. Okay, I live where you see those light blue blobs. Those are rooms in a house. You share the bathroom with the family. Okay, and hey, they need the money. So am I going to rat them out to the city county Honolulu? Oh, hell no. Right? I'm just saying, there are all these myths about this, okay, but we're not going to go there either. I don't know, you guys have vacation rentals here, right? Or are they like on Oahu, where they're undocumented vacation rentals seeking a pathway to citizenship? So just don't tell anybody. Okay, then here's another one, carrying capacity. I'm sorry, I know a lot of you this is dear to your heart. You've been an environmentalist for as long as I've been reading the literature. Sorry, I don't think. The last time I came close enough to being called an environmentalist, I was on a project with Jim Ramaset and a bunch of other guys, and Mike Buck, who was the state forester. This is like 20 years ago. Mike Buck, who was the state forester, who had put this group together, and we wrote some papers. And I said, "Well, what's this initiative all about?" And Mike Buck said, "This initiative is about making environmentalism safe for the middle class." So this is the last time I came that close. But people are always telling me about carrying capacity. And I'm sorry, it's Maui. It's not the Big Island. It's the next biggest island. So I'm just not going to treat the carrying capacity issue, because I think it's kind of a fake thing. And here's my point. I'm going to show you a picture of Honolulu stuck on top, Kihei Malaya. You build Donald Trump's wall around the whole thing, right? Not going to have any effect on the rest of the island. My point is, it's how you do it that matters. Honolulu from Kaimuki to Kalihi fits between the boat ramp in Kihei and Malaya Harbor, if you build a freaking Donald Trump wall around it so those buggers can never get out of the ghetto. So I'm saying, are we going to build a wall? I don't know. I'm just saying, it's how you do it, and that's kind of the theme. Now, a lot of people tell me if we had less tourists, we'd be better off, and here's the thing. We can go back to a time when there weren't tourists, and it was so good that people were leaving Maui for 40 years. That's how good it was. So as soon as the jet aircraft came, or alternatively, as soon as Jimi Hendrix played his Rainbow Bridge concert up in Pukalani, you know what I'm talking about, and there's the link for the half of the room that does not know what I'm talking about. You gotta check it out, brother. Couple guys, I showed this to the board of the Realtors Association of Maui. They got some old buggers over there, right? They got emeritus realtor, right? 40 years, bro. And I showed them this link, and a couple guys were like, yeah, man, I was at that concert. That's when all these guys came to Maui, right? They all came to be hippies in the commune, and now they're realtors. That's the story for Maui. And before the jets came, the population of Maui was declining absolutely. So I'm pretty sure just from this alone, we can infer that as tourism goes, so goes the rest of the population, because so goes the economic opportunity. If you unwind that, I'm pretty sure the toll goes down. And give you another example. I was on an Overtourism roundtable on Insights on PBS Hawaiʻi, you know that show? So you can go to the podcast, you can go to PBS Hawaiʻi, you can go down, click the link. You should listen to this conversation. It's a really good one. So this wahine from Kailua, I can't remember her name. I went to school with her auntie, but okay, that's just life in Hawaii. She's from the Kailua Neighborhood Board, and then there's me, right, the Nazi guy, and then there's Chris the Baga, the Marriott guy. He's the CEO of the Hawaii Tourism Authority. Who's the guy? Chris, yeah? The guy. Anybody know who's the CEO of the Hawaii Tourism Authority? It matters that much to the Big Island. Okay, I'll think of his name. He lives in Fred Hemming's old house in Maunawili. And then Keith Vieira, who is the former Starwood guy in Honolulu. So we have the former Starwood guy, and then, right, Marriott acquired Starwood. So then we have the former Marriott guy, because now he's head of the Hawaii Tourism Authority. So we had Keith, Chris, right? Tatum, Betty Tatum's son. The late Betty Tatum's son. You remember Betty Tatum? So Chris, Keith, the sister, I can't remember her name, from the Kailua neighborhood. And we're all Kailua residents, and it's all about overtourism and vacation rentals in Kailua. I mean, we're from Kailua, right? And Chris said something. He goes, so, people who stay in a vacation rental don't spend as much on average as people who stay in a hotel, right? And I'm like, that's exactly what a hotel guy would always say, but sure, fine, what's your point? Well, if we had fewer people staying in vacation rentals and more people staying in hotels, then average expenditure would be higher. And I believe, yeah, but the reason they're not staying in a hotel is because they don't want to stay in a hotel. So they're not going to, if you burn down the vacation rental, they're not going to go, oh, sad, let's go stay at the hotel. They're just not going to come. And then you have less tourism. So that's the experiment. The city council heard about this. They must have watched the show, and they're like, ooh, let's try that. Let's increase the credibility of enforcement threat on our ban on vacation rentals, on undocumented vacation rentals, and see what happens. So that's happening right now on Oahu. It started last month. We'll get the first data. So I'm just saying, be careful what you wish for. It may seem like it got really crazed over the last 40 years, and it's only been 40 years. It's been in the lifetime of people in this room. And I'm just saying, be careful what you wish for, because going in the other direction is not that helpful. Let me focus in on the triumvirate, the congestion, the natural resource depletion, and the cultural dilution, and why overtourism is such a huge problem. The problem starts with this another newspaper clipping. It's the front page of the Advertiser with the 2018 results. Another record year. And this is, right, this is what the tourism authority is always talking about. Turns out the amount of money we made in 2018 was the same as we made 30 years ago at only 6.5 million. That is, the visitor count has gone up 50%, and the spending hasn't changed at all after adjustment for inflation. It's gone up on the neighbor islands. We saw the data. For the last 15 years, it's gone up at least, because we only have data for the Big Island, or for Maui. What island is this? Since 2004. But for the state as a whole, I got data back to the 50s. So for the first 30 years, it went up, and then for the last 40, it's gone sideways. And this is a problem. We do it for the money. We don't do it for the aloha spirit. I mean, I'm sorry. Some people think we do, but like I say, we would take their money if they just stayed at home and sent it to us, right? That's what eBay is for. And this is a problem. Now, we were talking earlier, a colleague and I, about, so this is the room count on Maui. All of the vacation rent, all of the inventory growth on Maui since that moment when visitor spending peaked out statewide 30 years ago, all of the growth has come in vacation rentals. The traditional lodging, right, hotel, condo, right, those numbers have actually gone down. Now, some of them have converted over to vacation rental, right, where it's the democratization of the lodging industry. That's what vacation rentals is. I have an app, and therefore I am a landlord, right, of a short-term rental. That's how that works. It's true that visitor spending per Maui visitor, if you adjust for inflation, has come down slightly. I don't understand why some of this has happened. A friend of mine is working on this. You see the gray area? That's the last recession. It's like a light switch. When did the recession start? When spending per person on Maui dropped. Now, we didn't even know, right? You don't know it's a recession until about a year later, when the National Bureau of Economic Research Dating Committee, which is these 4 old geezers that, are, looking for a hookup. Like, the dating committee says, well, the recession started in December 2007, but they didn't make that decision until November 2008. So you gotta wait a year before the committee decides. Literally, in a conference call over the Thanksgiving long weekend, they all got on the phone. Bob Hall from Stanford, and there's 5 of them now. And they said, yep, the recession started. Well, we knew that the minute the cruise ships stopped coming and the Aloha Airlines shut down. And it's like a light switch. And look, the volcano. A volcano not even on this island. Okay, I am not even going to try to explain this. But here's the deeper problem. If you go back a half century, the downward trend in inflation-adjusted daily average daily visitor expenditure, visitor spending per day, has gone down for 50 years. And my colleagues, I'm collaborating with Frank Haas, who's like a tourism marketing guru, and Jim Mack. I mean, he wrote the book, Tourism Economics, or something like that. So the guy who wrote the book, Tourism Economics, literally. And we each have our thing, and Frank's thing is, I'm going to increase spending per visitor. And I'm like, go for it, Frank. Use your marketing wizardry to get a higher spending visitor, because I'm sure after 50 years, I'm not holding my breath. When I look at these data, what I see is the same reason I will never spend as much money at Disneyland as I did the first time I took my kids there. Because I ain't no dummy. Dude, I just went last month. No, July. Bro, my wife made me go to Disneyland. We had a wedding in California. So, then we have to go to Disneyland. That's in California, right? I'm like, Sebastopol? Anaheim? What? So check this one out. We're going to go again in November. How come? I have a conference in Seattle. Oh, that's on the West Coast, right? This is my wife. Bless her heart. She's from Maui. So Disneyland is a big thing. And we had to go to Galaxy's Edge because she had to get her picture with her lightsaber, her $200 lightsaber. Bruh, no crowds. We went on 9 rides the first day, fast pass, no line. Unbelievable. I was like, where the hell is everybody? I still don't know why. But here's my point. I didn't buy a single thing. I did not buy one thing at Disneyland. I paid up the yin-yang for the damn hotel, right? But this is how you do it, right? You go stay at the Grand Californian, do your 7 o'clock early entry. 7 o'clock they open up for if you stay at the hotel, right? So pay the big bucks for the... I'm just saying, you learn how not to have to spend money. First stop for tourists, first stop for the foreigners, first stop for the Canadians, Costco. They're no dummies. Where is the Costco? Next to the airport. They're no dummies. You know what I mean? You got to think about this stuff. So I'm guessing we're not going to win this battle, but Frank thinks he is, and I'm willing to let him do it. And by the way, this Maui data set is the little box there. That's the same time frame. So what you see on Maui has happened statewide. My guess you don't win this battle. My guess is everybody that comes here is as smart as we are. They got jacked the first time. They will never get ripped off like that again. And and then it's like a fight. How much money can I take from you because you really don't need to spend money while you're here? And herein lies the problem because, again, we do it for the money. We're not making the money, and so people are pissed. And my colleague, John Knox, who conducts these kind of surveys and is writing the new Maui Tourism Strategic Plan, or maybe he already did, and now he's working on the Tourism Authority one. Okay, so he's in there. He lives in that world. He writes, plans. And so he had this slide from a presentation we made together. Like, what are people pissed off about? Traffic, overdependence. It raises living costs because people who live in beachfront Kailua next to Obama's vacation rental are all salty, right? I mean, I'm sorry, I don't understand the living cost thing. A long list of things that are upsetting people, right? Right down to authentic culture. How many people think that it's authentic? Well, I don't know, define culture. I'm just saying. That's in people's perceptions, these are all issues. And we do it, public policy is in the public interest. We're the ones who count. I'm not talking about, I finally stopped reading Lee Cataluna, right? She wrote an article the other day that said, some people's votes should be worth more than others. I'm like, what? Okay, not reading your column anymore. But okay, so these are the issues. We're all familiar with them. Frank thinks we're going to get there with marketing. Jim's kind of going, well, maybe we should shift from marketing, right? You sold us the convention center on the argument that it was going to raise average spending. How's that working out? Okay? You tore down Aloha Motors at the corner of Kalakaua and Kapiolani, and you built a convention center so my wife can go to Comic-Con. You see her on Instagram. I know, right? The last time it's like, okay, Halloween, I'm all, yay, let's go to Waikiki. So I went as Clark Kent on vacation. I put a Superman t-shirt under my Hello shirt. I left it open, and my yard work hat, and I walked around Waikiki as Superman on vacation. I punched out the glasses. So we wrote a paper. There's the reference, and the four main themes are reforming tourism, governance, institutions. Yeah? It's on the UHERO website, and people actually read it. I haven't been called into the vice principal's office since 8th grade, Kailua Intermediate. Remember when they had the paddle with the holes in the paddle? I'm not making this up. These are the two things we had at Kailua Intermediate. Kill Haole Day on the last day of school. That was an actual thing. And the paddle in the vice principal office had holes drilled through it for cut down the resistance. I'm not making that up, you guys. Okay, so we wrote this paper. Why am I even talking about that? I can't remember. Huh? Ours was wood. I remember the wood. And, but anyway, so reforming the institutions, a greater fiscal and commitment, for example, to cultural stewardship, natural resource stewardship. DLNR, really? What's their budget? Like $3.80? Are you serious? And I'm going to talk about 3. And then there's number 4, and Frank Haas has got that covered. So I'll let we have a better plan. We need a better plan. We need, more effective marketing. Yeah, you guys should go do that. So people call, I know. Oh, so that was the last time I went to the vice principal's office until last year. And I got called by the governor's office. Oh, snap. That guy must have automatic paddle, right? You get called. So me and Frank and Jim Mack and John Knox we called ourselves the Gang of 4, and then we got to the end, and John said, I can no longer participate. Come on. So now it's the Gang of 3, which doesn't sound as cool. And we go into the governor's office twice, bro. We had meetings with the gov, and and remember he was running for governor, and the only thing Colleen Hanabusa could come up with was missile alert. Remember that? You guys all forgot that already. The entire gubernatorial election was like missile alert. No worries. Missile alert. No worries, bro. No more missiles. And so while that was going on, we were talking about overtourism. And we're like, okay, shoots. And then I had meetings with Suzanne. Oh, remember Ed got elected, Case. Ed Case got elected. So then Brad Case is the little brother of Suzanne, right? He's the chief economist of the National Association of REITs, which is a whole nother, okay, I'm going to anger all the face crowd. And so he says, hey, I'm going to have coffee with my sister. Come have coffee with my sister. So I went and was chatting with Suzanne Case about this. And so this is the outgrowth of all of these meetings I've been having with these guys like this. So first, in terms of governance. Right now, the Tourism Authority, Kuleana, is this little thing. We don't really know where it lives, who are the principals of the Hawaii Tourism Authority? Right? They are the agents of whom? I don't know, but it seems like the hotels to me. It's always a hotel guy that's running the deal, right? So they've been there for 20 years, so we think we need to nest that function in a larger economic governance, or I was calling it economic, I still have economic governance. This just changed. I'm now calling it resource management. I don't know what to call it. What I'm saying is that we need to nest it in a larger thing that's looking at natural resources, cultural resources, and whatnot. And I think it lives at the cabinet level, right? So part of it is Suzanne Case should get some money. And another part of it is the Department of Tourism, which does not exist. We have a Department of Agriculture. We don't have a Department of Tourism. Does that make any sense? Yes, it's 1920, but it's almost 2020. In 1920, 60% of workers in Hawaii worked in agriculture. Today, it's 0.6%. And half of those guys are growing potatoes. Like, potatoes? Potatoes? What? Like, can you spell nematodes? So I'm going to focus on the triumvirate. So let me get into that a little bit. And I want to come back to this point. I would be focused on this even if there were no tourists. Because I've seen you driving your oversized 4x4 freaking Ford F-350 up to Poli Poli Springs. And don't tell me how you can't afford to pay. Right? I mean, what is going on with this? So here's my, I'm gonna leave all the arguments, right? I hear these people say, oh, like, tourism, it changes the character of the neighborhood. I'm like, dude, that's like what white people said about black people moving into their neighborhoods 50 years ago. Do you have like another reason? Because you say that's not bigoted, but it's the exact same words. So how about we talk about something else? So here's what I'm talking about. I'm thinking pricing, explicit pricing mechanisms, making markets is the way to go. Now, 50 years ago, when I carefully underlined all the important points in the first edition of the Theory of Environmental Policy by William Baumol and Wallace Oates, the 1975 first edition. This is the second edition from 1989, so I'm pretty sure there's 30 years of literature I need to catch up on. The argument was that making markets is administratively too costly. And I'll give you an example. My classmates, I took all these resource econ courses at Wisconsin. It was a great program. Got to hang out at the Forest Products Lab. This is when all the manufactured wood products were being invented. It was just great. All the math for exhaustible resource, renewable and non-renewable resource, optimal control theory, right? That people had just worked out the math. Like the Russian Pontryagin had, solved the problem in the 1960s, and then we were, applying it to these renewable resource problems. So these guys, Mad Dog, Martin Davin and his students, go up to the Fox River in central Wisconsin, where there's pulp and paper mills and townships, right? In Wisconsin, there's no towns, there's townships. In Wisconsin, there are no bars, there are taverns. I'm not making this up. In Wisconsin, they don't have microbreweries, they're just called breweries, okay? This is like in the Cretaceous era. And pulp and paper mills, townships with taverns, up and down the Fox River Valley, and they're polluting the river. Can't fish in it, can't swim in it. And, the original solution from the 60s with the first, Silent Spring people was, we got to regulate. Everybody has to achieve the same standard. We're going to apply the same water quality standard to injection wells in Lahaina that we apply to Three Rivers in Pittsburgh. And that may or may not be debated before the Supreme Court in this coming session, I don't know, right? So that was, we're going to regulate it, and Mad Dog and his students said, how about we make a market for the right to pollute? I know, right? That's exactly the response that everybody got. Because, well, it's a renewable resource, it's a river. The fish crap in it, so we know that it's able to handle a certain amount of effluent. And once we figured out what that is, we'll make a cap on different reaches of the river, and then we'll sell the right to pollute up to the cap. We'll have auctions on county courthouse steps. We'll auction the right to pollute, and then the municipalities and the pulp paper mills have to decide, are they going to pay to treat the effluent, to mitigate the pollution, or are they going to buy the right to pollute? Because up to the fish crap level, biochemical oxygen demand, the river is okay, and dude, worked like a charm. Now, why don't we see that? We see it a few places on the Ruhr River. EPA did this with sulfur dioxide emissions, and we have interjurisdictional coordination problems that are transactionally costly. But yeah, having auctions on county courthouse steps, that's a little transactionally costly, I would say. Except we live in this world, the Amazon world, where I can put the right to go up to Haleakala at 6 in the morning on eBay. So let me walk you through that. Right? What did they do up at Haleakala? They made a cap, 150 cars, used to be 300, parked all over the place. They made a cap, 150 cars, they charged, what do they charge now? It was $1.50 at first. Is it still $1.50? Are you serious? $1.50? Oh, whatever. Yeah, I mean, at 6 a.m., I'm charging like $30, right? I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying. So here, you go up on your phone. You can do it right now. Go to Google Maps, right? Oops, no internet. Well, whatever. Go to Google Maps, type in Lanikai Pillbox Trail, and this is what you actually get. Google knows how many people are on the Lanikai Pillbox Trail at every hour of the day on a Tuesday. And on the particular Tuesday, like yesterday, on which I downloaded, it wasn't actually yesterday, but this I downloaded this for Suzanne Case. I took this to the meeting at DLNR, and I said, Sister, you get an app? No, brother, the only people who don't have an app are the DLNR and the County of Maui. Because everybody else has an app with rivers of metadata telling them why it should be more expensive late in the morning than early or late in the day. Surge pricing a la Uber. It's an algorithm. And I'm coming over on the plane, and people leave their newspaper behind, and I'm surrounded by these crazy, wacky people. Visitors try to bribe their way into Hyaena State Park. Of course they do. There's some big local sitting in a toll booth getting paid $15 an hour. Of course I'm going to try to bribe that guy. How would I do it? First of all, the reservation system should be an app. Second, I should be able to trade my entrance fee, like I do World Series tickets on StubHub, right? And third, what's my enforcement mechanism? Big mokes driving around in DLNR? Oh, hell no. Wave hi to the drone that's shaming you on that's live streaming you on a shaming site because you didn't pay your fee, because we know you're there. Everybody knows you're there except the DLNR. Okay, did you read the other stuff? Having variable prices modulates the loading, mitigates the congestion. It generates a revenue stream for stewardship funding. Positive prices at Poli Poli Springs send a signal to private potential providers of recreational services that I can do that better for the same price, right? Right now, what's the signal the Parks Department sends to private recreational services providers? Well, it's free over here, so good luck making a business out of it over there, right? Lifestyle preferences have changed. Nobody plays golf. I'm sorry. It's just, there's like 5 guys that still play golf. Right? Have you hung out with millennials? They don't play tennis, they don't play golf. They got Fitbits or under their Apple Watch or something, and some Lycra bulletproof, their little biker shorts, and they, riding along, okay? Oh, what? And then, oh, you can't afford like $1.50 to go to, what? $50. I don't know, make a market, put it on eBay. So that's my whole thing. That's the end of my presentation, right? Here's the Poli Poli Springs data. Popular times on Saturday, popular times on Thursday. Take your pick. Here's what I get from the Haleakala. Okay, did you check that out? You can check it out on your phone. Here's what I get from Haleakala. You remember the roller coaster? Yeah. 2007, the peak. 2013, the trough. Then the escalator. 20 teens, all going, all going, all going. When did they start capping the number of cars at dawn? February 2017. And look what happened to the numbers. They're not going up. They're going up everywhere else, except for the volcano thing. And what's the interpretation? This is right out of the Maui News. Park spokesman, I should have blocked out his name. Sorry, brother. I will redact your name in the future version, right? Looking at visitor data over the last couple of years, there have been several ebbs and flows. Yeah, okay, the roller coaster and the escalator. But the implementation of the reservation system does not appear to be impacting well, dude, it went down. It went from the equivalent of half the tourists coming to Maui to the equivalent of 1/3 in like 2 years. Why would you not take their money? I mean, even if you limit the number of cars to 150 instead of 300, surely you would charge those guys more if you owned the park. Wait, we do own the park. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about. Here, well, there's, oh, and then this quote, I love this one. Visitation seems to be more evenly distributed throughout the day. Yeah, except for today. Okay, so we can do this, you guys. If you just put restrictions in place, first of all, there's a whole constitutional complexity, right? I mean, you can't stop people from coming here. And if you do what Oahu's doing, well, we'll destroy lodging units. Oh, good. So the remaining guys get to make more money. That's called protectionism. See Donald Trump about how that works out, right? And here's my father, Guido Sarducci. Smartphone apps have reduced the barrier to entry for people in the lodging industry or the zipline industry, or whatever recreational, ocean, marine, recreation, blah, blah, blah. And the same apps have figured out no network connection. The same apps have, remember all the secret spots we used to have? Like on Oahu, we did the what you call Jedi mind trick, right? There is no surf in Windward Oahu. These are not the droids you were looking for. And people go, oh, there is no surf on Windward Oahu. I better surf town. Right? Nobody knew where the trails were. Now they have a freaking app. So demand went up, and in the lodging space, supply's trying to keep up with the VR guys, vacation rental guys, but in the recreation space, this is the endowment, right? You've got to figure out a way to have it pay for its own stewardship, figure out a way to get private providers to get into the game and reduce the loading on the natural public access endowment. And this idea that you can just fill a boatload of people up and drive out to Moko something, whatever's, how much do they pay for that? Why do we give permits away for anything? Why isn't there a market on eBay for revocable, fixed interval, tradable permits to operate as a commercial vendor on natural resource, on our public access, natural, recreational resource endowment? This is the 21st century. There's an app for that, and your child, and her undergraduate computer science class is doing a problem set this week where she designs the pricing algorithm with variable time of day pricing. So I would say, let's get on that. That's the end. This was part one, but it's like 8:30 or something, so I'll stop there. I think, do we have time for questions, or did I use it all up?
For
I know,
such
did I
an
blow your mind?
amazing presentation. So Tapani here is going to help us.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, so my question is, so what do we do about the roads? Honopiliani Highway.
Oh, yeah, okay. Here. I made a bunch of other slides. Okay, you know that a majority of new cars in America, sold in America, are actually on light truck chassis. Okay, so that means more depreciation, right? Because we all drive SUVs and trucks. We're not driving Priuses. So the depreciate, I'm just saying, that's where these are the U.S. production numbers. And by the way, we should all be worried about the fact that they're going down. I'm just saying, thank God we just increased the tariffs on automobile components earlier this week. Here's a statistic that will blow your mind. There are more registered motor vehicles on Maui than there are humans. And that's part of a statewide trend in which the number of registered motor vehicles per capita has tripled since statehood. Now, let me ask you this. Has the number of housing units per person tripled since statehood? Okay. I once worked with the Sierra Club attorneys. It's a long story, but I was going to testify to preserve ag land, and the only way I could do that was go over to the dark side and work with the Sierra Club. And these Wahine's, bless their heart, their heart's in the right place, but their whole argument is if you build houses, it creates more traffic. And I'm like, no, sisters, The number of cars per capita has increased threefold since I was a kid. And I guarantee you the number of houses per person has not. It's just cars and people driving around in them. I was teaching at UH a couple years ago, and one day I come huffing and puffing into class, like I just barely made it. It's like, the number 4 bus had to stop on Kinau Street for construction, and I almost, and I'm all like sweating, and they're all looking at me like, you ride the bus? Dude, I was the only person in an intermediate macroeconomic theory class at University of Hawaiʻi that rode the bus to class because they all have a car. Freaking undergraduates, like 20-year-old kids, they all own a car. I didn't own a car till I was 30. I had a bike, and I felt that I was lucky when I was in college, right? So that's the world that's changed. And I just talked about Pole Pole Springs. No, bro. Make me the Konahiki of Honoa, Pili, Piilani, blah, 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 highway. I'm putting up a scanner right here, and when you drive through my scanner at 5 in the evening, I'm charging you more than when you go through it at 1 in the afternoon. The upper road has to start at Olowalu's, and it's got to be a tollway. So when I go to Denver to visit my kids, because we didn't build any houses for them on Oahu, so they moved to Denver, right? This is why pricing is important. When you're a tourist, you don't have time to come back next weekend, right? You either pay or you don't go. So when I'm in Denver, I got to get around. I don't have time to sit in traffic in rush hour. So here are my choices on the Boulder Turnpike or on the E470. I can go in the HOV lane, which is the Hawaiians on vacation lane. They got a whole lane. Or I can go in the E-toll lane, and they scan me at 85 miles an hour. There's no toll booth. There's no big enforcer guy in a toll booth collecting quarters from me. They scan the car. And then Avis sends me, they get a monthly, in the old days it was transponders, now they just scan you. I put my boys on the account while they're in college, and then every month I get a bill, like my water bill. I would get the e-toll bill from Denver. I see, hey, where were my kids going? What? Okay? So then you have to have another way for people to get around because some people can't afford to pay, rush hour tolls. But you got to start there. Oh, and this is why I brought, my little props here. So 20 years ago when I was, doing some, work in Singapore, I got this. Oh, no, this is from Hong Kong. Sorry. These guys, their airport was too small, so they made another airport. Where do you make an airport in Hong Kong? You build a freaking island, and then how do you get to the island? Well, we'll have to make a train to get to the. So when you check in for your flight, I don't know how it is now. I haven't been there. In those days, this is 2005 or something, or 3 or something. You check in at the train station. They take your luggage, you get on a high-speed rail system to make the bridge rigid enough to withstand the typhoons. The high-speed rail goes through the bridge, which is like this, so it's rigid, and then they have the freeway on top. And it's all, the mass transit system is private. The MTA, the Mass Transit Authority, is private. You know what I mean? And then when I took my kids to, these are all things, these are old, like 2007, I take the boys to Salzburg, I get this card, it's got a chip on it, all my museum entries, and now it's an app. When I got, Vienna's got an app. What are we doing? So, yes, I'm not just talking about pricing recreational resources, I'm talking roadways, or at least some of the roadways. Question in the middle, yeah? Is there a what? Here are my main things. Sea level rise, I know you all came to hear about that. And it's just over-tourism, just overwhelmed. So let me get to, so my contribution on sea level rise is, first of all, it's still moving here. Here are my 3 main points. Whoa, okay, go back. Sorry, this old computer, which cost me less than my telephone. Okay, that's what we're going to do. Sea level rise. Sorry, I had a, okay. Is this where sea level rise starts? Here's where sea level rise starts. So shift F5. So I don't have a lot to contribute on this, but I have been asked a couple times, once by the coastal zone management people, once by the commission on Oahu. Coastal zone management people ask me, how much is it going to cost to move Makai people Mauka? And so, okay, I came up with my estimate. There's 175 billion in real estate, and you make some assumption about how much of it is beachfront, and it's about 40 billion. And then you say, what the hell would we pay those guys to move Mauka? Okay, that was my actual answer to them. I did the math. Now, why would we, the people, pay for them to move Mauka? And the problem is this. If you have a policy that says the beach is public, then when the ocean goes up and the beach is now in somebody's backyard, that's not their backyard anymore. But in Hawaii, because we don't have credible threats of enforcement, we all say, oh, I'll give you permits so you can build seawall. I feel sorry for you. And I know, bro, you can't do that anymore. You cannot do that. It's time inconsistent. Another Nobel Prize, which you can read about over here. So my fast version is, it's time to just stop letting people. And now, here's the problem. There's a bunch of people, right here, national flood insurance, the hurricane is going up the East Coast. Okay, right? And FEMA has flood insurance, and what happens? The ocean comes inside, will my house get flooded? Or the rain from the hurricane came down and flooded my house in Charleston, South Carolina. Right? This is exactly what's going to happen tonight. And then I file a FEMA flood insurance claim, and the same 4% of guys are repeat filers that account for 1/3 of all the flood insurance claims. So they're engaged in morally hazardous behavior. Right? You give them the money to rebuild their house in the same spot. Right? Why do we do that? We adversely select from the pool of investors the ones most likely to need to be bailed out, and then we say, oh, but when the ocean comes up to your condo, we'll let you build a seawall. So, okay, I'm sorry if they built the condo in Napili before we knew the ocean was rising. But that's a fact, Jack. So now we have to give people a way to asset reallocate. They got about 50 years to get their act together and figure out how to recoup more revenue from their beachfront assets and redeploy that wealth inland. That's my answer. And so in places like the ones I'm familiar with, which is and there's another reason we should be getting into resilience investment. Just look at the cycle here. That's the housing cycle on Maui. Here's the overall construction cycle. Which direction is it going in the 2020s? Down, right? So there's going to be a bunch of construction workers out of work. Let's put them to work moving the freaking Honoa, Pi'ilani, highway, Mauka. Because and on Oahu, this is what I'm talking about. You gotta move all those guys with cesspools? Are you serious? We gotta move the road, Mauka. We gotta build a sewer system, for God's sake. Right? And stop letting it go out in the brackish whatever. So we gotta do all of this. And we got 30 years. Right? They gotta move the coast road inland. It's not all of the coast road that's gonna be inundated, but enough. And in enough places like Kihei, right? Oluwalu's underwater now. And and here's another problem, right? Who are the investors in Kihei? They're Canadians, right? Kihei, right? They're Canadians. You ever wonder, hey, it's the Canadian public pension plan that's investing in potatoes? Okay, those wacky loonies. So, yeah, this all has to happen. That's why I had all these other slides, because we've got to make a pathway for people to redeploy, and then we, the people, we can't pay rich people on the beach to move inland. They take the risks. I'm sorry if they didn't know, but we've got a way to get, maybe we'll let you operate the house as a vacation rental until it's underwater, and then you can make enough. That's a plan. That's one plan. And then, but you're on your own when you got to build a new house. On the other hand, what are we going to do about Lahaina? That's a collective. We're going to have to, I was at a hearing today, and they were like, the guy testified before me. He's like, you know, we're going to have to raise Ala Moana Boulevard, right? I'm like, like the Ala Moana Dike? Yeah, no, we're not kidding. So good thing I had a whole set of stuff about, yeah, but if we build this building, it's worth this much in property tax revenues over the next 30 years, which is bankable today. Today, you do not have this $70 million in present value over the next 30 years. If you let these guys build this building, it will fill your coffers. And so you need to bank it today. You need to, don't just do this year's budget. You got to do the next 30 years of resilience investment planning and carve out the part of future property tax, or this is the county we were talking with, right? That's my sea level rise. You need a credible commitment to defending the Hawaiian, native Hawaiian tradition, which, if you go to law school, you learn, or Justice William Richardson said, unless somebody wrote a law that extinguishes the old kind, that's the law. And the law here is you don't own the beach. Wherever the ocean goes, that's my land. That's our land. This land is our land. So that's the time consistency part. Check it out. Look it up, time consistency. There's a whole literature on this. And it affects a lot of things like zoning and, we have all these departures from that. Maybe another question or two?
Paul, we have a question here.
Hi, thank you. You're the economist, not me, but it strikes me as we have a spectacular lack of imagination if we think that Hawaii or Maui, let's say, can only be a plantation economy or a tourist economy. That strikes me as a superior lack of imagination. There's economies all around the world that are based on other things. Who decided, other than people who don't live on Maui, that Maui's economic basis needs to be tourism?
Yeah, so these things happen, dare I say it, organically. Nobody made a plan in 1965 that said, sure, AmFac, Lawrence Rockefeller wanted to try it out. So he bought he bought Mauna Kea Resort. He made Mauna Kea Resort. He had to build a road. He had to build a sewer and a water system of his own. That's how Mauna Kea Resort, 1960. AmFac, Kalanapali, that's 1960. So these guys are just chancing it, just like Mahi Pono. They're just chancing it. They're totally winging it. None of these guys, well, there's a couple of old A and B guys, but they weren't, sugar plantations aren't actually farms. They're industrial operations, right? They're not, a lot of those guys aren't really farmers per se. And so I have to be careful here because the fact of the matter is small open economies succeed by specializing in their comparative advantage and trading with the rest of the world for the stuff that they don't make as well. And that may be one thing. On Maui, the data are $9 billion in gross domestic product, $5 billion in gross tourism receipts, about $4 billion in value added once you do the math correctly. So $4 billion out of the $9 billion in value added on Maui is one export. What's the next thing on that list? Okay, and while you think about that, I'll tell you, when I lived in Madison, Wisconsin, which was a great town, and it turns out I should have stayed because now it's on the list of the best towns in America, right? I'm pretty sure it's the same today, there were 3 things in Madison, Wisconsin. The state capitol on one hill, Bascom Hall of the University of Wisconsin on the other hill, this is southern Wisconsin, and the Oscar Mayer Wiener Factory. That's the whole list. So, I mean, it's just dog luck that they had the university in 1848. What? What were they, fighting off the Indians or something? I mean, who comes up with the university in 1848? These guys did, in Madison, Wisconsin. So it turns out most places don't have a long list. Every place has one thing, and then they trade with everybody else. Now, if you do it really well, if you do that one thing really, Oahu has two things that they can export: tourism and the military. And the military, that's kind of a double-edged sword, right? No pun intended. I mean, the joke is, right, the only thing the military ever got in Oahu was attacked. I'm just saying. So we should be so lucky to have two things on Oahu, and the neighbor islands have one thing, which gives you the luxury of being able to try out everything else under the sun and see what takes hold. You make, dude, it's free money. You wake up in the morning and everybody wants to give you money to be here. Now, do we have a management problem with that? Oh, hell yes. For 25 years, it was kind of dormant at whatever it was, 2.4 million visitors per year, plus or minus, but now it's 3. And the day is coming, by the way, there comes a time when, because you guys have not really changed the inventory very much on Maui, there comes a time when, once the hotels are running 85% occupancy, like they do on Oahu, like clockwork, then they make all the money. And, right, because all you can do practically is pay for this ridiculously expensive hotel room, and you cut back on all the other stuff. That's happened. I could document that. I'm not going to do that here, but okay. So it's big enough a force on Oahu, where we were sold out since about 1990, that it actually overwhelms the neighbor island data, where you still got room to grow the industry. How you do that is the main focus of the discussion today. But I understand your aspiration. I'm here to tell you, you just said the 3 things every small town in America says. We only do one thing. This is the worst place to do business in America, and all the kids are moving away. It's a brain drain. Every place in America says the same 3 things. And it's just a mystery to me why we don't realize that when we say that the U.S. economy is diverse, it's because every place does like one thing or 2 things, or, if you're Silicon Valley, you do 5. But even Silicon Valley doesn't do agriculture. Not anymore, right? Because they got a better thing to do. And, maybe we're all, like, social media, it's going to ruin the world, so great, yay. But, right, so these guys trying to do agriculture, props to them. We'll see how it works out. Maui, look, we've tried many things on Maui. We got a supercomputer over here. We bounce lasers off satellites from the top of the mountain, right? My dad came over here in 1967 and went over to Molokai, right, and started growing corn, right? And now you guys kick them out. Your genetic modification. Get out of here, right? That's the whole problem. It's the biggest ag industry in Hawaii, and you guys trying to kick them out. It goes to all the Ph.D.s over on Kauai and over here, right? So here's another thing. We don't live in an economy that produces widgets, puts them on the boat, and drives the boat to Crocker, California, where there's a refinery that makes C&H sugar. We don't do that at all in Hawaii anymore. We barely did it in this century, and then only on this island for about 5 minutes, right? We don't even live in, I'm not making this up, 1920, 60% of people in Hawaii were employed in agriculture. And I showed you the data on how many cars per person there were. The average size of a new home was 850 square feet. What's the average size of a new home today? 2,500 square feet? Really? How many persons were in the average household in 1925? How many today? 3. How many persons aged 20 to 64 were there in Hawaii in 1920? For every person aged 65 and over, 40. How many are there today? 4. No, that was 2010. It's 3. It'll be 3 next year. It'll be 2.5 in 2030, one of whom did not graduate from college. Right? So it was a completely different world. We produce services and information. And how do we measure those things? We count up the money that Bayer or whoever, ChemChina, or whoever owns, the telescope, pays for PhDs in astrophysics and the people that work with them to do their job. The military doesn't produce anything. We measure its value by how much it costs to employ them. We don't build weapons systems in Hawaii. So in an economy where you produce things, you have the market value of the thing because you made a thing and you put it on a boat or now an airplane and you sent it there. And if you think you can do that, knock yourself out. Somebody's making vodka on Maui from taro corms, as somebody told me. Right? There's a Maui vodka. You're all looking at me like there's no such thing. So there's a few of these things. And that's, as I say, the beauty is that if you do one thing really well, and that takes care of your police force, then you can do a bunch of other things. In a system of courts and jurisprudence to, have contractual agreements upheld. Right, the infrastructure of our society. Then it's just entrepreneurs. It's the young guys going out and doing something that their dad thought about but couldn't figure out how to get there. And now, all the kids that have this, when I tell kids, bro, there's an app for that, they're like, yeah, I just made one. There's a guy in Kailua. I have a buddy in Kailua. We've been talking about this for a couple years now. He's a paddler. These 2 guys, they're paddlers. One lives in Lanikai, and he was all, oh, they're changing the character of my neighborhood. I'm like, dude, you live in Lanikai, shut up, right? And the other vacation renters changing the character. I'm like, okay, so let's make an app. So when they go up Lanikai Pillbox Trail, they pay us. They pay we the people. So these guys, bro, they got an app. They're out there trying to sell it, and the DLNR, and they're all, well, we're going to do a pilot project at Hyena. I'm like, oh my God. But it's coming. That's what I'm saying. It's coming, and the important point of what you allude to is this idea that we have an environment reasonably well-to-do. We can support initiatives, most of which are going to fail. Most of the crops, mahi pono plants, are not going to succeed. Most of them. Why? Because all the risk in agriculture is on the supply side. It's not on the demand side, right? You grow the crop, you don't know if you're going to be able to harvest it. Instead, we produce services and information. It's not that they're detached. So, for example, what's the value of transgenic or cisgenic or any other kind of genetic modification in the maize genome in Hawaii? Hawaii's largest agricultural activity, measured by the amount that companies spend to conduct the research here, right? What? No, dude, they're coding the maize genome. That's the value. The seed is just like an SD card, right? Seed has the code, but that's not the money they make doesn't come from the seed. The money they make comes from the intellectual property that they're creating. And so what I'm saying is, if you measure that value, its value is a derivative. It goes up with the price of corn and it goes down with the price of corn. So in that sense, in that particular sector, there's a connection. I'm pretty sure that's not true in astronomy. Sorry, I didn't mean to debate a particular point. I'm pretty sure there are lots of industries that just hang out there on their own, and there are entrepreneurs all over Maui that have figured out how to do something, and, we should give them more room to try to do that here. But will they be another sugar? Call me in 100 years and tell me how it worked out. I think
Thank you,
it's time
Paul.
to go home.
I'm so sorry we reached the end of our time here.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you, Paul, so much.